Okay, I'm going to do the best I can to make this make sense. I won't get through this video just on one battery. Okay, so we have to do number 2. 1 through 4, find the formulas for the functions f plus g, f minus g, and fg means f times g. Give the domain of each. Okay. We'll talk about the domain after I get it done. So I will be showing my work on a big piece of scratch paper for each problem. Okay. So up here, these are the two functions. F of x equals the quantity x minus 1 to the second, and g of x equals 3 minus x. So first we have to find what f plus g is. Okay, so you're going to make a parentheses for the f and a parentheses for the g. So inside the f you're going to put that quantity x minus 1 to the second power. And then in for the g you're going to put 3 minus x. Now you have to get rid of that second power outside the quantity. All you simply do is duplicate the x minus 1 and FOIL it. Okay, x times negative 1, negative 1 times x, and negative 1 times negative 1. So that's x second, negative 1x, negative 1x, and 1. So then we combine these, and that's x second minus 2x plus 1. Okay, so make a new, just copy the problem and then change that to the x second minus 2x plus 1. You're just duplicating it and foiling it. And then 3 minus x. Now that stupid second power is gone from it's inside now, which is fine, okay? Now adding, you just combine like terms. You have x to the second, and then these x's, a negative 2x and a negative 1x. You can add those. That'd be negative 3x. Then 1 plus 3 makes 4. Now you're wondering, what's the domain, okay? Do you have x on the bottom of a fraction? No, you don't. Do you have x inside of a square root? No, you don't. It's all real numbers. Okay. Now, next we have to find f minus g. Okay, so again, it's the same thing. Put a 1 in front of that x. I don't like that minus here. Okay, well we know we have to duplicate that, but I just did that. We already know that that's x second minus 2x plus 1 minus 3 minus 1x. Now, when you have a minus, before you combine the like terms, you need to make that positive, negative, positive. Everything in the second quantity has to get reversed, not the first. Okay, so we'd have x to the second. Now I'm adding a negative 2 and a positive 1. Those are my x's, and that'd be negative 1x. And then 1 and negative 3 is negative 2. Domain, again, is all reals. Again, domain, is x on the bottom of a fraction? No. Is it inside of a square root? No. So we don't have to worry about that. It's all reals. Okay, then we have to take fg. That means f times g. F times g, my bad. Parentheses for each one with a times this time. Up here was plus, up here is minus. So f, same thing, okay? We're going to take x minus 1 to the second, and then 3 minus x. So before I multiply between the parentheses, I got to figure out what that to the second power is. Well, it's the same thing it is up there. X second minus 2x plus 1. Times 3 minus x. Now, when you multiply, you basically distribute like crazy. You don't combine like terms like you do on the plus and minus. Put a 1 there if you want. So it'd be 1x to the second power times 3. 1x to the second power times negative 1x. Negative 2x times 3. Negative 2x times negative 1x. And then finally the 1 times the 3, and the 1 times negative 1x. So 1 times 3 is 3 with x to the second. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. Now x second times x takes us to x to the third. And then negative 6x. And then positive 2. And then x to the second. And then 3. And negative 1x. Now, you need to collect like terms. You start with your highest exponent, which is the negative 1x to the third. Then your x seconds are the 3x second and the 2x second. That makes 5x to the second. Then you combine your x's, the negative 6 and the negative 1. That's negative 7x, and then plus 3. Now again, domain is all reals because you have x, but it's not on the bottom of a fraction. It's not in a square root, so you don't really worry about that. You just write domain's all real. Okay. Okay, now the next one looks a little bit weird. This is number 4, but it's not going to take you near as long to do. So f of x equals the square root of x plus 5. G of x equals the absolute value of x plus 3. Okay. So we got to find f plus g, we got to find f minus g, and we have to find f times g. Don't put the parentheses there, that was stupid of me to do. So the square root of x plus 5, and then g is the absolute value of x plus 3. Now if you have a square root and an absolute value, you actually can't add anything. So you just take away the parentheses and simply write the square root of x plus 5 plus the absolute value of x plus 3. Now for the domain. Now, you don't write all reals because you don't have x on the bottom of a fraction, but you have it in a square root. The absolute value doesn't matter. X can be any number in the absolute value. But in the square root, if you have x inside of a square root, you take what's in the square root, the x plus 5, and always set it greater than or equal to 0, because you can't have a negative in a square root. It has to be greater than or equal to 0. Then I subtract 5 from both sides, and x is greater than or equal to negative 5. That is your domain. Okay. Okay, now subtraction is going to be done the same way. There'll just be a minus in between them. So the square root of x plus 5 and the absolute value of x plus 3. So again, you can't really do any math when you have a square root and an absolute value. And then the domain is the same thing, okay? We have the square root of x plus 5, so the domain, x greater than or equal to negative 5. Okay, you also are not going to multiply, okay? So f is the square root of x plus 5, g is the absolute value of x plus 3, okay? Now with multiplication, about the only thing you do is just put them, crunch them together. The square root of x plus 5 times absolute value x plus 3. And again, we have x inside of a square root, so the domain again is going to be x greater than or equal to negative 5. So that's why I keep asking you, is x under a fraction? If it's under a fraction, I'll show you what to do, but if it's in a square root, you take the entire expression under the square root, set it greater than or equal to 0. Okay, number 6. F of x equals the square root of x minus 2. G of x equals the square root of x plus 4. So we got to find f plus g, f minus g, and f multiplied by g. So I put the square root of x minus 2, square root of x plus 4. Now you're like, okay, they're both square roots, so would you add them then? No, the only way you would add them is if they had the same thing inside, but the insides are different, so it's similar to the last one. But the domain's a little bit different, okay? So do you have x under a square root? Absolutely, you actually have it under 2 square roots, so you need to go x minus 2 greater than or equal to 0, x plus 4 greater than or equal to 0. So x greater than or equal to 2, and x greater than or equal to negative 4. Now when you have 2 of them, the one that's smaller you need to ditch, okay? Because x has to be greater than or equal to 2, okay? Greater than or equal to -4 doesn't really tell me a whole lot, because then I could be like -3, -2, -1, 0, so forth, but then that would be less than 2. So we ditch the smaller one, and this is a domain, okay? And the subtraction's the same idea, okay? So again, square root x minus 2, square root x plus 4. You really can't do any simplification when they're under when the expressions are under a square root, okay? Unless they would actually happen to be identical, but they're not. So x minus 2, x plus 4. Domain, domain's going to be the same thing, because you would do exactly what you're doing up there, which will lead to greater than or equal to 2. And then the multiplication's pretty much the same way, okay? So, square root of x minus 2 times the square root of x plus 4. Again, you're not going to multiply those, okay? You just leave it square root of x minus 2 times square root of x plus 4. And again, the domain in that is going to be x less than or equal to 2. It's kind of weird stuff. Like really weird. Okay, then number 8, the person who gave me the assignment's correct. 8's your next one. F of x equals x to the third. G of x equals the cubed root 1 minus x to the third. So we got to find f plus g, f minus g, and f times g. Okay, so f plus g, x to the third, and then 1 minus x, the cubed root of 1 minus x to the third. So again, we're not doing anything. We can't really simplify it because that crap's under a cubed root. That's not, so it's just x to the third plus the cubed root over 1 minus x to the third. Now, the domain is all reals, and some of you are going to be like, oh, but Hermson, the x is under a root. Yeah, but it's not under a square root, okay? It's under a cubed root. You can have negatives inside of a cubed root. You can't have them inside of a square root. You can have the cubed root of a negative, okay? So you do not have to go 1 minus x to the third greater than or equal to 0. The domain is all real numbers. See, I was doing that on the other one, setting the inside greater than or equal to 0, because it was a square root, okay? Okay, f minus g. So again, it's the same thing, okay? Then the cubed root, 1 minus x to the third. So again, you're like, do I have to make that plus? No, because I can't combine anything, okay? I did on the very first problem because it didn't have those roots and absolute values and that crap, okay? So x to the third minus the cubed root, 1 minus x to the third. And again, the domain's all reals. Okay, now f times g, it's going to be the same thing. So f is x to the third, and then g is the cubed root, 1 minus x to the third. No, you do not distribute that, not when it's in a cubed root like that. You just keep it separated. X to the third times the cubed root of 1 minus x to the third. Of course, the domain is all real numbers. Okay, so that's 2 through 8. That was fun. Not. Now you got to go to number 11. Yeah, 11 through 18 takes a while. Okay. Number 11, you got f of x equals 3x plus 2. G of x equals x minus, or no, I'm the wrong one, sorry. Number 11, f of x equals 2x minus 3. Always put the two functions up top. G of x equals x plus 1. Now you have to find f of g of 3 and g of f of negative 2. So what you're going to do is set up just two columns right there. Okay. We'll do the f of g of 3 here and the g of f of negative 2 there. Now you're like, well, how do you do this? Well, this is what's called an input. Okay. You start with the f function, just copy it down, 2x minus 3. Then you parenthesize the x and replace it with kind of a longer parentheses. Now you go to the g, so you're going to substitute x plus 1 into the g. Okay, whatever the g is, you put in that parentheses. Okay, so I write the f function down, replace the variable with the g. Now you need to simplify. So you don't have, if you have an exponent outside the quantity, you're going to need to duplicate it, but we don't have that, so we just need to distribute and simplify. So 2x plus 2 minus 3. Combine those, that's negative 1, 2x minus 1. Now you substitute 3 into your simplified expression. 2 times 3 minus 1. 2 times 3 is 6, minus 1 is 5. That's the answer. Now over here you start with the g, x plus 1. Parenthesize your x, remove it, drop the plus 1. Now you substitute the whole f function into the quantity. Now, if you don't have to distribute in front, just get rid of the parentheses, okay, at that point. So you don't have to distribute. You do need to add the negative 3 and the 1, which would be negative 2. Okay. Now, you substitute negative 2 for the x. Okay. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4, minus 2 is negative 6. Okay. So that one wasn't too bad, but they get a lot worse. Okay. Number 12. Number 12, f of x equals x to the second minus 1. G of x equals 2x minus 3. So what are you doing with them? Well, you got to do the same things, okay? Repeat the same process. F of g of 3, g of f of negative 2. So you write your f function down, x to the second minus 1. This is not going to be as smooth. You have to replace your x. The second power goes outside the quantity. Kick him out. Now you put the g into it, 2x minus 3. Now, when you have a quantity to the second, you need to go up the side and duplicate it, or just do it down somewhere off the side. 2x minus 3 times 2x minus 3, and you apply the FOIL. 2x times 2x, 2x times negative 3, negative 3 times 2x, negative 3 times negative 3. So that's 4x to the second, negative 6x, negative 6x, and 9. So that makes 4x second. Those combine to make negative 12x plus 9. So this has now been figured out, but you got to put the minus 1 with it. 4x second minus 12x plus 9. Don't forget the minus 1, because then you combine those. That's 8. Now it's simplified. Now you substitute the 3 into it. You know you don't go to the quadratic formula. You're not solving for x here. You're giving a number to put into the simplified expression for x. And I'm just going to use my calculator to find this. Okay. Now on g of f of 2, you start with g. This will be quicker, because there's no second power outside of what we're going to make into our quantity. Okay. There'll be a second power, but it's inside. So there's no quantity to the second, but you do need to distribute your 2. So it'll be 2x to the second minus 2 minus 3. That combines into negative 5. That's simplified. Now you need to substitute negative 2. 13. I'm going to stop this video after I'm at 14 and I will continue on. Okay. Or I'll wait till it gets to what, I'll just keep going. F of x equals x second plus 4. And does it say in the directions do a domain? No, it does not. Okay. And then g of x equals the square root of x plus 1. So, f of g of 3, g of f of negative 2. When's this used? That's a good question. Okay, don't have an answer. So f, x to the second plus 4. Now this isn't as crappy as it looks here. You're going to see why here in a bit. So you're going to put the square root of x plus 1 in there. Now you're like, how do I FOIL with a square? You don't. The square root and the second power cancel each other out, and now you just have x plus 1. Okay? So the square root in that situation is nice. 1 plus 4 is 5, so x plus 5. Now you substitute 3 in for x, it ought to be pretty easy. 3 plus 5 is 8. So again, when I insert a square root in a parentheses as to the second, the square root and the second power cancel. Okay, so I don't have to do all that FOIL garbage. Now g, I start with the square root of x plus 1, just the x, okay? Kick out your plus 1, you substitute the f in for it, x second plus 4. Now there's no need to have this parentheses there anymore because I don't have to distribute. There's no number in front. But what you do have to do is you need to combine the 4 and the 1. So it'd be the square root of x second plus 5. Okay. That's simplified. Now you have to replace your x with negative 2. Now you got to be smart with how you do this. Find what's inside the square root first, then we'll find the square root. Don't try to do it at the same time. So that's 9. The square root of 9 equals 3. I don't know if you have to put positive or negative 3. It could be either one, but just go with 3. That's what I would say. Okay, 14. F of x equals x over x plus 1. G of x equals 9 minus x second. Now what am I doing? Okay, f of g of 3, g of f of negative 2. Such a fun thing to do. Okay, so the f function is x over x plus 1, and you are going to replace both your x's, both of them. Okay. And you're going to put 9 minus x to the second on top and on bottom, because that's your f function. Now these parentheses, since I'm not distributing and there's no power, I can take them away. Okay. So on top you just got 9 minus x second. On bottom you got to combine the 9 and the 1 because that's a 1x. If you want to put a 1 in front of it, go for it. 9 and 1 makes 10, so that would be 10 minus 1x to the second. That's pretty well as simplified as she can get. Okay. Alright, now we're going to substitute 3 on the top and the bottom, but do them separately. 9 minus 1 and then 3 to the second is going to be 0. Actually, that means the whole answer is 0. But I'll just do the bottom just to show you the process. 1, 0 divided by 1, 0. Okay, now G. 9 minus x to the second, okay? Just the x. And for that x, yeah, you have to put the whole fraction down. Okay, now, how do you simplify this? You got a second power on the parentheses, so the question is 9 minus, how do we square that, okay? Well, you take x to the second, that's easy enough. And then you go down here and you duplicate a parentheses of x plus 1 times itself. Okay. Actually, hold on. I don't want to confuse it. Just duplicate that, okay? If it's a fraction, listen, if it's a fraction, which it is, don't do the FOIL on the duplication, excuse me. Just keep it the way it is, okay? Now, if they didn't give us this -2, we would have to get a common denominator with the x plus 1. But since they give us this -2, I'm just going to put -2 where my x's are. Because really, all I have to get is that answer. So that x is replaced with -2 to the second. Then a -2 plus 1. -2 plus 1. So we know this is 9. -2 to the second is 4. When you take a negative to the second power, it always turns positive. Now you can figure out the bottom. It's going to be -1 times -1, which is 1. And then 4 divided by 1 is 4. 9 minus 4 is 5. Now, if they made us simplify this, which that's not what it says in the directions, then it'd be a crappy problem, okay, with that. Okay, number 15. It says f of x equals 3x plus 2, g of x equals x minus 1. Now you're doing something different. You got to find f of g of x, g of f of x. This parentheses means the same thing this does. They just don't give us numbers to put in. Instead, we have to simplify and state the domain. Okay. So I'm just going to go f g x and g f x. So you start with the f. I got to change batteries after this problem. Okay. Replace it with the g, which is x minus 1. Now we don't have a power, but we do have a number to distribute, and that's 3x minus 3 plus 2. Okay, and that's 3x minus 1. Now the domain. Is x in a square root? No. Is it on the bottom of a fraction? No. So that's all reals. Okay. G x minus 1. Okay. Okay, so on the g you're going to put x minus 1. Okay. Oh shoot, sorry. Start with g, x minus 1. And you're going to substitute the f, 3x plus 2. Now there's no need for this parentheses. There's no power, there's no number to distribute, so take them off. 2 minus 1 is 1, 3x plus 1 now. So yeah, it matters the order you do it. And that's again the domain, all real. Okay, I will continue after I switch my battery.